Fresh off one of their best regular seasons in 5 years, the Cleveland Cavaliers lost out on what many considered a disappointing playoff series against the New York Knicks. With a record of 51-31 last season and a fourth seed in the East, I think most Cavalier fans had much higher expectations, especially considering they were the number one ranked defense in the NBA. However, with all that being said, the future is still extremely bright for the Cavaliers. Last year was just a taste of one of the best backcourts in the league with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, they have plenty of talent on their team. There were a lot of good things to take away from their season last year. Despite the disappointing playoff defeat in round one, I feel like everyone kind of had them locked in almost to make it to round two at the very least. You know, who knows if they would have went to the conference finals, or who knows how many people thought about that. I really didn't consider them that high in year number one with Donovan Mitchell, but again, they showed good signs. They were the number one rated defense last season with a 109.9 defensive rating. And then they're 8th in offensive rating with a 115.5 rating, and then 2nd overall in net rating. Definitely showing that they have plenty of talent on their team. They are cohesive. They built their team around their defense, that two big lineup with Evan Mobley, Jared Allen protecting the rim, and then they had a good offensive output obviously too. I will say that Garland and Mitchell, they need to find a better system between them. I felt like a lot of times Darius Garland went heavily underutilized compared to Donovan Mitchell, who, I mean, obviously had a great year, was even in the MVP race at the early part of the season for a while there too. But I feel like in order for them to take that next step, they need to find a better way to utilize Garland and Mitchell together. They need Evan Mobley to take another leap, and then overall they need to round out their bench unit, and we'll talk about who they picked up here, but I'm looking for them to take that next leap, and it will take a little more cohesion.
No, I agree 100%. Like you say, Donovan Mitchell coming off that career high 28.2 points per game on career high field goal percentage and career high 3-point percentage. So obviously the Cavs super stoked at how he performed. Great pickup, and he'll for sure continue to do what he does. And, you know, you kind of talked about Evan Mobley. I'm quite high up on Evan Mobley. He's got a ton of talent and untapped potential waiting to be developed. I mean, if you just watch, he handles the ball well, cuts really well. He's a heads-up rebounder, not only defensively, but the one thing I like, he doesn't mess around down low. He's so tall, long, and athletic that when he grabs a board, he just goes up and dunks it. It's super efficient. You know, offensive side, he excels super good on defense. You know, coming in at third place voting for defensive player for last season. He's definitely the defensive anchor for the squad, blocking shots, altering shots, and overall just been a big presence down low. And paired up with Mobley, you have Jared Allen, who is also a great defensive threat too. Obviously, having two versatile monsters in the paint is a good recipe for a solid defense. So I don't think they're going to struggle in that sense again. I kind of expect them almost to be right up there again next year. And, you know, talking about Jared Allen, not only is he great on defense, but he's a great one-on-one scorer. And with the Cavs having all the three-point threats that they, you know, have acquired, who they kind of just already have had, it's going to be great for him to be in that position where he could maybe go one-on-one more in the paint and get more scoring options.
I agree, especially from a defensive standpoint, though I kind of think they almost took a step backwards offensively. Their front court pairing with Mobley and Allen, I felt like they almost went away from it a little bit at times, especially during the fourth quarter, which, yeah, in today's NBA, it's kind of difficult to have even a too big backcourt in any way, or too big front court in any kind of system at all. And with Allen not being a great three-point shooter, and then Mobley not really being a good one either, they kind of moved away from it here and there. And they played Mobley for the first time this past season more at the center position. I'm kind of curious if they're going to keep going more towards that, or if they would even consider eventually moving on from Jared Allen. Not to take anything away from him, obviously a great defender, great rim protector, can even switch on defense here and there. But a lot will depend on Evan Mobley here and how they view him. He didn't quite take the leap forward that many were hoping for last season after a really, really good rookie year. And, you know, not to say they didn't play well last year in the ladder for Defensive Player of the Year there. Obviously a great rim protector. And, you know, I kind of questioned even before going into last season of how will the addition of Donovan Mitchell affect not only Darius Garland, but Evan Mobley. And it obviously did offensively. You know, not that they were viewing Evan Mobley to be a 20-point per game guy for them, but he really didn't take a leap through efficiency or really, his overall game didn't develop that much. I'm hoping they'll kind of translate to year number 3 for him. But getting into everyone else and kind of what they need to work on here in order to take that next leap as a team. You mentioned their 3-point shooting, which was good by 3-point percentage wise. They ranked in the top 10 if I remember correctly, but it really fell off during the playoffs, like really bad. They shot only 32.7% as a team, which was in the bottom 5 of all playoff teams, albeit for only the 5 games that they played in round 1. And then even during the regular season, they were bottom 10 in both 3-point shots made and attempted. And I think they kind of didn't do enough of it. I mean, 3-point shooting is kind of variable. Like if you're connecting on the shots that you're taking, that's fine. But it almost like they couldn't find good shot attempts at times. And then, with your too big lineup down there, that you kind of want guys shooting the ball more to potentially get rebounds. And that was another thing that they were kind of disappointing in too for having a too big lineup. They were 25th in rebounds per game during the regular season, despite running a too big lineup with Mobley and Allen. I mean, it wasn't a huge problem for them, but it definitely did show up here and there. And then finally, they played very slow. They were dead last in the entire league in pace per game during the regular season, and they did a lot of isolation-heavy offense, which, again, was kind of caused by the addition of Donovan Mitchell. You're, of course, going to let him isolate and create for himself, but they kind of did that to an extreme last season. Like, even a high pick and roll play here and there is not really a play. It's a variation of isolation for the most part, unless you add more into it. But they did a whole lot of that, especially with Donovan Mitchell. I think they kind of took too much away from what Darius Garland did by leading their offense and kind of from a schematical standpoint in the season prior. And I really, even though again they ranked 8th in offensive rating, I didn't quite like the way their offense run last season, and it did eventually show up during the playoffs.
No, it was definitely open gym style for a lot of it. Like you say, ISO ball. So we talk about what they did last year. So 2 additions I kind of want to bring up in regard to that. So we got Max Strus and Imani Bates to the Cavaliers. And Imani obviously coming out of college, but Max Strus, kind of a proven guy for the Heat, not super high 3-point shooting, but I think they'll both add a great offensive threat to shooting, hopefully find a little bit better rhythm. And like I said, during his time with the Heat, Strus was a great bucket getter who he scored when they needed to. And it was mostly in rhythm, right? Like it'd be coming off a screen, catch and shoot, just kind of kick and pop type of guy. Even can drive a little bit. And like I said, somewhat low 3-point percentage shooting last year, but the year before that, he was up over into the 40%, I think 41%. So I think he could bounce back to even a little bit higher if they start kind of getting more to that playmaking style for him. And Imani Bates, to me, I think he might be a real hidden gem for the Cavs team. He's a 6'10 small forward who had a huge breakout year offensively his sophomore year at Eastern Michigan last year. Not super well known for his 3-point shooting, but I don't know if you watched Summer League, but he was shooting a ton of threes, and he averaged 17.2 points per game and 6 rebounds per game while shooting 44% from the field and 40% from behind the arc in every single all Summer League game. So right now he is a 2-way contract, but I could see him getting a little bit of a seat in the full rotation. I guess I don't know fully how all that works, but how do you think adding guys like that would help this almost ISO style basketball team?
I really like the addition of Max Strus for them. It was a big contract, 4 years, $62 million for a guy, but, despite him only connecting on 35% of his 3-point shot attempts last season, he did attempt around 7 of them per game, and they were tough shots too. So, he can definitely increase that more. But when you have a guy attempting the difficulty of shots that he was and commanding constant attention from the defense, that will help generate more easy opportunities at the rim for everybody else. Another, major shooting threat like him, and I do imagine he'll probably be a part of their starting lineup. It's probably not guaranteed, but I like him in there as a fit more than Karis LeVert, who they, move back and forth between their starting lineup, or even Isaac Okoro. I like Strus better than that. It's kind of a small lineup, but, with that too big front court, kind of makes up for it from a rim protection standpoint. And obviously they didn't falter too much last season with being the number 1 ranked defense. And then you mentioned Imani Bates. I really wasn't very high on him, to be honest, after his first year in college. And then he went to a small school, Eastern Michigan, and, I didn't take too much away from that. I mean, yeah, he should be dropping around that many points per game and improving, but he definitely did surprise me during Summer League. He looked really good, a lot more, overall refined than I thought he would, given that he didn't play well during his first year of college at a legit D1 school. And yeah, he played well. I'm not sure he'll be a part of the rotation. He kind of has a somewhat similar game to Karis LeVert, who's already kind of their sixth man. So it might be a year or two before we see a lot of Imani Bates, but they were very high on him. Their coaching staff made some good compliments towards his way, and I would not doubt it if he had like kind of a minimal role in the rotation and maybe translated a little bit of that into value. But a guy you didn't mention that I'm also pretty high on happens to be Georges Niang. They added him with a 3-year, $25.5 million contract, and he might not be very well known, even less known than Max Strus, definitely. He's another high-volume three-point shooter, and that will be another threat for them within their offense. He'll definitely be coming off the bench, I imagine, but he shot 40.8% from 3 on nearly 5 attempts per game, 9 attempts per 36-minute average during the past 3 years combined now. And honestly, one of the most reliable three-point shooters over the past half decade. He's not old, he's only about 30 at this point. Not a bad defender, not great, but his value will come from a catch-and-shoot standpoint from the wing and corner. And when Donovan Mitchell and Garland are collapsing the defense, maybe even Mobley here and there, he's a great guy to kick out to. He's played with guys like James Harden. He's played with Donovan Mitchell before back in Utah. I think he'll be a great fit, a really silent addition to their offense. I'm actually nearly as high on him for what they needed in regard to that three-point shooting problem, quote-unquote, compared to even Max Strus. I really like that addition. Other than that, though, they didn't really add too much, and that's kind of where I think people are getting a little bit lost in the Cleveland Cavaliers. They did make a huge addition. Only kind of Strus, Niang, Imani Bates, if anything, was probably more hyped up than either of those two. Other than that, they just added end of the bench guys. Ty Jerome, who I like, actually had a pretty solid year with Golden State last year, averaging about 7 points, 3 assists, and 39% from 3 in only about 18 minutes per game. And then they brought back Tristan Thompson for a locker room bet, and then Damian Jones for a little more front court depth, vertical athleticism. But again, a lot's going to rely on their internal growth here from not only a young talent standpoint with Mobley, Garland, even Donovan Mitchell a little bit, but it'll be internal growth from a cohesion standpoint. They need to build more chemistry. They need to refine their offense more while maintaining around that top 3 defense. And that'll kind of be what I'm looking for them to do this season.
No, I agree 100%. A lot of good additions, nothing crazy. Overall, I really do like the squad that the Cavaliers have here. Again, on paper, they have a super strong backcourt, strong front court, decent depth. It's all going to be how they kind of put it together when they need to. They're going to win games in the regular season. I can almost guarantee that. They're going to win games. It's going to come down to what they're going to have to do playoff time, and that's when it really matters. And last year, a big thing was none of them really had a whole lot of playoff experience. They're super young team.
Yep.
Obviously Donovan. So I think that getting a little bit of that, kind of their butt kicked under the belt and kind of learning about how that goes, I think that's going to be really good for them. I'd say I expect them to kind of almost maintain that 4th seed again, and even maybe compete for even a 3rd seed with Philly, maybe.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
They're for sure on my high watch this year, and overall it's going to be a fun team to watch.
Agreed. I feel like we often, take too much away from a team's first year together, and that's really what they were. I mean, their young talent has played together for about 2 years here with Garland and Mobley the season prior, but the addition of Donovan Mitchell, that's not an easy thing to incorporate to your offense. I mean, he's a legit number 1 option, and that took away a little bit from Darius Garland. It took them a while to figure it out, and while it did seem like they had it all together, it kind of, what they couldn't get down, like the little things, came back to haunt them during the playoffs. But now that they've seen that, they can watch the tape back on it. They can refine all the little things during training camp, which they'll have another full one together, and then preseason, 82-game season. It should be better, but then again, their coach definitely will be on the hot seat. They have a lot of more expectations this season. I agree, they'll be a really good regular season team. I wouldn't doubt if they were a top 3 seed, even went up from that 4th to even 3rd. I really like them for a regular season standpoint. A little bit skeptical on their kind of playoff threat ability, but I would not be at all shocked if they made it to round 2, maybe even to the conference finals. You know, you never know how injury luck pans out, and that, at the end of the day, that's kind of what it comes down to. But I would say my ceiling for them would be around the conference finals. It would take everything clicking for them for that to happen, but I would say don't underestimate the Cleveland Cavaliers here. I love their young talent, they obviously have a lot of it, and they should only be going up from here.